A warm welcome to all our viewers to our series Natural Medicine. Yesterday we did an experiment out in nature. An experiment, and I arranged and organised it, but also participated personally, and I did this to prove something to you at home. It's simply the fact that our mind, our psyche, our consciousness is a very, very important and crucial factor in finding our health. Not only the academic medicine tells us this, through psychoneuroimmunology, that our psyche must always be included in all processes of our body and is also responsible. But also, for example, Jodie Spencer or Clemens Kubi, a guest who was paraplegic and is healthy and fit again today. What do I mean by that? Our destructive thoughts up here are also responsible for our health, or affect our health. And things like in physics, where they say it doesn't work or a conventional medical diagnosis untreatable, does not exist, ladies and gentlemen, at home. Because our psyche can achieve an incredible amount. And with our experiment, we would like to show you today what we did yesterday. And I'm convinced that you too, at home, can make a huge contribution to your health through mental focus. Well, it's about to start, so stay tuned. And with that, I'd like to warmly introduce my guest, Kurt Specht. Welcome. Thank you very much. Kurt, you are a firewalker, a trainer in the field of firewalking. And we got to know each other in a clinic where we did something preventatively for our health. And then I met you and thought to myself, this is so exciting. How can it be that we can override physics? Yeah, you mentioned it briefly earlier. We make the impossible possible in firewalking. We walk over 600 to 800 degree hot coals. And the question that always arises is, how is that possible? And it is just possible by working with our mind, our consciousness, our psyche, and can act on our body in such a way that we can walk over the fire there unscathed. So, one thing you mentioned was basically the expectation. With what expectation I go to this firewalk? How do I approach this experiment? You called it so beautifully. What is my expectation? If my expectations are positive, then I have a very good chance of walking over it safely. If I go there with negative expectations from the start, then of course the chances are worse. And that also makes the connection a little bit to naturopathy. How can I influence my body with my mind, so to speak? It was also very important to me to prove it, to show it, especially for the audience, that just a lot more is possible than we actually believe. We had about 20 people there yesterday whom I quickly acquired, that's what I call it, and you directed them, coached them, and after 2 hours we actually walked over the fire, and now we'll show you what it looked like. Take a look at it, it was really very nice. That was the firewalk, so the grand finale. But we didn't get there straight away. It was a process of around 2 hours in which you prepared us. Tell me something about that. Exactly. So it's about preparing. Firewalking is a tool that we can use to initiate an inner change, to change something in our life. And if we use the Firewalk as a tool, then it can work. By having a goal that's worth it at the finale, as you called it, then to walk over the fire or over the embers. So there must be a purpose why I want to do this, so that my mind can prepare my body so that it can work afterwards. I think that's so exciting. How can that be? That our body can walk on coals at 800 degrees without getting burnt. And if you just take into account, it worked, you've just seen it now, and I didn't get burnt, and by the way, I'll be happy to provide proof. If you see it like that in the camera, nothing. So I didn't get burnt, and I walked 2 or 3 times over the fire, and it was fun. And everyone went along with it. It was just really nice. So, and if we're really caught in a disease, what can we do for our health up here? And in my opinion, that is simply really the core aspect. And that is what this experiment was also designed in such a way that you can see that we can and may ask for help from coaches here, to be able to force our conscious focus on health again. Well, now back to our seminar. We'll quickly show you a few pictures of how it was. We would first of all show how the seminar was structured by our guest. So I'll show you the video right away. Enjoy. We did a lot of exercises. Did all of these exercises make sense? Were they functional in order to ultimately achieve the goal? Yeah, exactly. So the exercises we did, everything we do in preparation is, of course, with the aim that the participants can walk over the embers unscathed afterwards. And of course there are different exercises that target different aspects of this preparation. So one of the first exercises we did was, for example, connecting with our resources. That means these are positive memories from our past that help us to get back into our comfort zone, so that out of this power, out of this relaxation that we can find there, we can direct our mind so that we can afterwards get into this extraordinary physiological state of the body, or bring it to the point where we are afterwards walk over the fire or over the hot embers. Well, I like to remember I was focusing on a special experience when I was with my family, everyone together, my whole family, with a view of a mountain on top of a glacier. That gave me a feeling of joy, of bliss, of having my whole family with me and this wonderful view. And that brought such a calm. And before the firewalk, when you say, I'm excited, and should I, shouldn't I? And this image was brought back to oneself, then it was an imagination, an image in front of me. with which I had completely lost that fear of fire. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the point, because when I'm standing in front of the fire at the finale, then of course it can happen that through the thoughts that come from my limbic system, which are also connected with fire, maybe also with previous experiences, who were good or bad with the fire, I am occupied. They occupy me so much that I can't concentrate on my body. To find out, is now the right moment to walk over the fire, and is my body ready to walk over the fire now? And this means connecting with one's resources, also from neurobiology. That means we bring our minds, so our brain as an organ of the spirit, and our body in a state from which we can take a new step to be able to do something new. That was what I meant earlier about the comfort zone. So we can come back to our comfort zone to find relaxation and strength there. But in this zone, we can't create anything new. We can't achieve new goals. They are located outside of this zone. And that's what we basically want to do as the first step with the firewalking. We want to take a first step in a new direction, in a change, to a special goal that we want to achieve in our life. And that includes us first, that we are capable of our bodies neurobiologically, or the neurobiological processes that take place between our brains and our bodies, so that we can master them. And that was an exercise in order to do that, so that I'd then be at the fire and can actually focus on walking over the fire, rather than being occupied with dealing with my fears. Because then it doesn't work. Then it doesn't work. Well, it is by no means restricted to people who now say that I would like to seek healing for my body. It could also be built into corporate structures as coaching for executives, to find the focus on the goals, for example, with a firewalk. Yeah, definitely. Many of the seminars that I do are for companies, where companies approach me and say, we have a new project, or we've had a restructuring, and we want to bring our team together. So here we come a little bit to the team building aspect, or on the team aspect. We can achieve a group dynamic with it. Exactly, and at the same time, we want people to find the courage to take the first step. Because you have to imagine there may be very different employees. Some have been there a long time, some have only just been hired due to this restructuring. And they all come together, and they should know, because it is expected, work together as a team, going in one direction to implement something new, or to initiate something new. And of course the Firewalk is a wonderful, wonderful tool to weld this team together as a group, and at the same time symbolically take that first step. And that's kind of this walk over the hot coals is the first step. I dare to take the first step, although I don't yet know exactly what will actually follow, or what will happen. Perhaps there are also things in this initiative that seem impossible to me. No, they can never work, and the Firewalk shows symbolically, even if I'm actually convinced that fire is hot, coals are hot, I can burn myself there. But if I manage to do it, I basically showed that the impossible is possible. And then that's a reference point that each individual, but also the group, creates together, where one can connect back to and say, oh, I did it, I made the impossible possible. And when I think now that something seems impossible in my everyday work life for this project, then maybe I'll give it a try, I'll take that first step there. And then I get there. Then I've shown the courage to reach my goal. I like your sentence so much, made the impossible possible. Patients have already sat in this chair who, from the point of view of academic medicine, should have had only 3 months left based on their diagnoses. And they did it. They also made the impossible possible. And all these ladies who were there had one thing in common. They always have included this psychological alignment, their focus on health. Now, you've used complementary medicine, holistic approaches, and just achieved this miracle. I say it's a miracle. Man is a miracle. At this point, I'd like to show a short video of what else we experienced that evening, and I hope you enjoy it too. Yeah, these rituals, we danced around the fire. I already had a bit of Native American feelings around the fire. I have to say, we also sang to it. But this dynamic became so strong, there was an energy there. And I think a lot of people lost their respect. No, not respect, their fear of fire because of that. I think this group dynamic was also very important. And how can you then take a representative look at these group dynamics within a search for health? Would it also make sense here that the whole family, the whole group pull together here? Definitely, you are addressing a very interesting topic. At the beginning of my firewalking coaching career, I also dealt a little with the history of firewalking, and that goes back a long way. Fire rituals can be found in all high cultures, transformation rituals that have something to do with fire. And it's still like that today. I met someone who still knew it in Romania and Bulgaria. Firewalking is the domain of women, but who are actually medicine women because they do this firewalk as a ritual of change for the sick. So that means they make a fire, they rake out these embers, and then they carry the sick, so it's the women who do this, then carry the sick over the fire as a change ritual, as a healing ritual. And of course there, they don't do that alone, but of course there is also a community there that gives support for both, for the executing. So the person who carries the sick person over the embers, and of course the sick person as well, as a healing ritual, in this process of healing from a disease. I find it very exciting. I found it very exciting when I read that, and then discussed it, as I said, with a Romanian I once met. And he said that it is still the case, and it is still done that way today. Yeah, and they do it in a circle, not as an elongated carpet as we did, but in this circular shape where the whole community can actually stand around it and participates in this ceremony, carries out this ritual of change, and also brings the dynamics and energy into it. You integrated a lot more into yesterday evening. I like to remember, for example, that arrow. I had to put an arrow here at this point where when you push in it hurts a little. We had an arrow here and a board on the other side. We had to hit this arrow until the arrow broke. I've thought about this for a long time. I'm not going to do that now. I really don't have to do it. It also hurt when I push in here. Then the arrow must hurt too. But in fact, one push and that was it. The ritual was over. So There again, there is resistance, but we have passed the comfort zone again. And symbolically, you said, this arrow stands for something that we would like to get rid of and something that we would like to achieve. And then we broke the arrow so that this one end would really go away. That was nifty. It was awesome. And as far as I know, everyone did it. Yeah, because it just has nothing to do with the physique of the body. So it's not a matter of strength. Many just try to do this with their physical strength the first time, and that usually doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Or maybe I'll go into it beforehand. Why are we doing this? You already mentioned briefly, we all have visions, dreams, goals in our life, and on the business side, of course, we also have goals that we want to achieve, and that can perhaps even be described. I can say that I want to change this and that in my life, I want to live myself, I want to change something and so on, and often it's only human that we then fail there. And that means we know that we actually want to do it, our will wants to do it, but we don't make it happen. We can't get into the act, get into the action and then actually do it. I've wanted to do this and that and so on. So actually, I know I want it, but it doesn't work. And the exercise with the arrow should also be viewed symbolically. So that means for all the obstacles, the fears, the excuses, the hesitations that we have to take the first step now, because that is usually the most difficult one, take the first step towards doing something to overcome it. And here, too, the exercise is about the body. So getting into the body and bringing your consciousness into the body. Because when I bring my consciousness into the body, and then to this point here, which is one of the softest points, just under the larynx, and you could say it is impossible because I would actually pierce it. And I can show here again that I can get to this point with my mind, my consciousness in my body, and then I can overcome these obstacles, the fear, everything that stands between me and my goal, and I can break through the first step that I want to take like butter. It's easy then. It was really like butter, actually. I had a lot of respect for it. I thought, why am I doing this crap? But it was too important for me to simply prove it to the audience today that even I, as a moderator, can easily do it. And that, of course, you can do it easily at home. It's not about the firewalk or breaking an arrow here. It's just that our psyche is responsible not only for health, but also for disease. Every professor of psychoneuroimmunology has long since proven that even destructive thoughts ultimately, or like fears, now there are very many fears, are not beneficial to health, but just the opposite. So I'd like to ask you, 100 people have probably already asked that. Are there injuries too? Have you ever had seminar participants who burn their feet? So personally, I haven't had any complainants who have actually burned their feet and needed medical attention. Of course, people have already burned their feet, especially at very large events, where maintaining group energy is difficult. Something like this can, of course, easily happen. But so far in my seminars, the groups have always found such energy and dynamics that burns were ultimately not possible. And you just have to stick to the rules. You stated very clear rules, how it works, and if, of course, then suddenly somehow the embers become a playground, then, of course, it is very dangerous. Exactly. So there are, of course, very clear rules. And therefore, dear viewers, the firewalk is nothing that you can do in the garden at home. So I explicitly warn against it. A lot of people say, okay, then I can just light a fire and then walk over it. I do really advise against that. because it is an inner preparation with our mind, our consciousness, our physicality. But to go back to that exactly, there are very clear, I would say, instructions aimed at ensuring that we can walk safely over the fire, that we don't stumble, that we don't run into each other. In the right direction. In the right direction, exactly. Yeah, so I think that is a very important aspect in the execution of the firewalk. And I think that's a reason why there are trained firewalking trainers or coaches for this experiment, or this seminar, or this exercise required, so that the participants can safely walk over there. What can of course happen, and I also experienced that in my very first personal firewalk, is that you absorb so much energy during the firewalk, because you have to imagine that we are burning a tower, so 3/4 of a stair, good hardwood, and of course a lot of energy comes together at once. And of course we also absorb this energy, so when we walk over the fire, then an exchange arises, a flow, and then of course it can be that the feet are just warm, and maybe that they are still warm all night, so that you have the feeling of hot feet. I hear that again and again from participants. I was so excited I barely slept all night. There was just such an afterburn, maybe also the energy that you absorbed throughout this evening. It was a great experience. I am very grateful that I went through it. And to have brought a proof here that our psyche is capable of incredible things. Now, I'd like to ask you, when a viewer says, I would also like to take a closer look at this firewalking and to what extent this could be useful to me or my company and so on, is there a platform where you can read a little? What it's about, how it works and so on? Yeah, of course, there is. I do it very regularly, and that's exactly why I have a website. It's called Burning Change, burningchange.ch, where you can find information. What is firewalking? How does it work? There are several articles that I have written, and there you can simply get basic information in which context that might fit, whether I would like to do it personally, whether I would like to bring this into my company, as I said, as a tool for so-called team building, or to launch a new project, a new initiative. Can I find information there on the same homepage of what's going on in the psyche from a neurological point of view? Yeah, well, the neurological aspect, or the neurobiological aspect, or neurobiological processes in general, I describe them on my other website, kurtspecht.ch. There is a folder which is called Knowledge, and there I describe how these processes work, and also how we can influence them, what power we actually have, what power our mind actually has over our body, if we really apply it for health. But of course also when we want to walk across the fire, to take a first step, to make a change or a transformation, a new goal. Thank you very much. Dear Kurt, in conclusion, what drives you to carry this idea out into the world, to expand one's awareness through the firewalk? Well, it's very important to me because I've experienced it myself. It took a few years, so I just took part in firewalks myself as a firewalker, as part of the ritual change of my sons from youth to man, so into the male age, into adulthood. And well, there I got to know firewalking as a ritual of change, and it touched me so much, myself, and the strength that can be drawn from it, and what is all possible that is considered impossible. that I was so excited that at some point I said that I would like to learn that in order to really bring it into the world, to show people that what we often think of ourselves, the fears and so on that we have, they are there, but there are tools how we can overcome them, how we can take that first step, how we can build up courage, how we can activate the inner warrior, the peaceful warrior in us, the archetype, the psychological archetype that ensures that we can achieve goals. And that's just fascinating. To see again and again in the seminars that I do, also with the feedback I get from the participants, that this has not only become my passion, but also my calling. One last question. How many years have you been doing this professionally? As a firewalking coach, a trainer? Yeah, I've been professionally active since 2015. After I have decided to do a professional training there. And then I brought it to various companies and also in public seminars where people with their private concerns were able to come to this firewalking seminar. Do you have to pay any special attention before you book any coach? Are there differences? Are there certifications where you should check a little before you book one? Well, I think, of course, it does make sense to listen to yourself, maybe to go to the coach's website to take a look at it. When people want to do a personal coaching, there is always a so-called initial meeting or a preliminary meeting. Personal coaching means with 3 or 4 people. We talked about group dynamics. My experience is that there should be 10 people participating, just so that the group dynamics and group energy is there too, and can be built up. With 3 or 4 people it would surely work, so it works, but it's not that it doesn't work, but it's a very great effort, not only for the participants, but also for the coach. So if you're between 10 and 20, participants, also 25 or more. I've also done a very big firewalk with 50 and more people. Then, of course, the group dynamic is much simpler and it's also much more powerfully present at the firewalk. Hence, my experience, it should be 10 people at least. Great. I sincerely wish you continued success. Good luck and lots of fun, and may you reach a lot of people and show them that the physics can also be undermined here, that it's always like there is nothing you can't do, that things are really possible that one hardly thought possible. And I definitely believe that what we did experimentally yesterday, dear viewers, is really a clear illustration that we have an incredibly powerful tool up here that we should really use for our health. And please, please, please don't have destructive thoughts. That drives the world crazy nowadays. But really focus on the good things, on the health, on your goals, on your visions. And rest assured, you are a hero too, and you are a great master. And you will also manage, like me, to simply break down certain limits here. Dear Kurt, thank you for this experiment. Thank you for being available. You travelled to us and organised everything, that we were allowed to do this in our garden. That was really great. My whole family is excited too. My son walked over it too, so it's just great. All the best. See you again. Thank you, Alexander. All the best. And to you too, dear viewers. See you next time.